focus on completing the research process. The process for your research involves: write a proposal, get it approved, carry out the research such as collect data, analyze data, write up the results and discussion. Next, I will provide guidelines to help you complete this process. It contains definition, scope, and significance of the problem, introduction, and the methodology used to solve the problem. In a 4-section thesis or dissertation, introduction, method, results, and discussion, the proposal consists of the first 2 sessions. In studies using a 5-section format, in which the review of literature is the second, the proposal includes the first 3 sections. As in a good introduction. The purpose of introduction is to convince the reader that the problem is important and worth investigating. It is the student's most important task. The first section of the proposal should do this, and it should also attract readers' interest to the problem. The review of literature provides background information and a critique of previous research done on the topic, pointing out weaknesses, conflicts, areas needing study. A concise statement of the problem informs the reader of the exact purpose. In other words, what the researcher intends to do. If appropriate, formulate hypotheses or research questions based on previous study and perhaps some theoretical model. Also, we should provide operational definitions related to dependent and independent variables. For example, if you want to investigate the relationships between children's perceived competence, enjoyment, and daily physical activity levels, you will have to accurately define these terms first. Basic assumptions are also stated and serve to specify certain conditions and premises that must exist for the study to proceed. Limitations and possible shortcomings of the study are acknowledged by the researcher. Always concludes with a statement about the significance of the study. This section emphasizes contradictory findings and limitations of previous research and the ways in which the proposed study will contribute to further knowledge about the research topic. The gold standard is that an intelligent reader should be able to replicate your study. That is, the student must clearly describe how the data will be collected to solve the problem set forth in the introduction section. Describe how you will achieve your purpose. Clarity. Logical organization. Use of headings and subheadings. Inclusion of all required information and materials. Rely on previous literature. By who the participants will be, and how they will be chosen, how many participants are planned, any special characteristics of importance. How the participants' rights and privacy will be protected, and how informed consent will be obtained. Methods of obtaining measurements or instrumentation are detailed, and the validity and reliability of these measures are documented. Generally, you should include apparatus, survey, equipment for treatments, and validity and reliability. Next, procedures or data collection are described. For example, if the study is a survey, you will discuss the steps in developing and conducting a survey. You need a cover letter for the instructions to participants, mailing the questionnaires, and set the time frame to follow up. If the study is an experimental study, you need to describe how treatments are administered, such as length of study, how treatments are applied along with the control procedures. In addition, you will also explain the experimental design and plan statistical analysis of the data. In other words, you should have these in mind. What type of design is used if appropriate? How the data will be analyzed. Overall, you should have sufficient level of detail to replicate the study. Words such as 3 levels of diet and exercise are not sufficient. Be sure to write clearly, without jargon, and in active voice as much as possible. For thesis and dissertation, you can put additional materials in the appendix. Those documents include but are not limited to sample-informed consent, instructions to participants if needed, copy of surveys or other instruments, and any other supporting materials. The final sections of the thesis or dissertation are the results and discussion sections. Results are what you have found, and discussion explains what the results mean. The results section presents your data and answers your research question. In other words, it presents your contribution to knowledge, what you found. The results should include all relevant information, present in a logical way, and be clear. The results should be concise and effectively organized and should include appropriate tables and figures. That is, you should use tables and figures to present information in an efficient way. For example, you can list the means and standard deviations for different groups along with the correlation between the study variables. Be sure not to repeat information in tables and figures in the text. Figures are particularly useful for percentage data, interactions, or summarizing related findings. Keep this in mind. Use tables and figures only when it is the most efficient way to present information. Those remaining should be placed in the appendix. Discussion section explains what the results mean. It is the most difficult part to write. When writing the discussion, you might consider these questions. What have I contributed here? How has my study helped to resolve the original problem? What conclusions and theoretical implications can I draw from my study? Tips. There are no cute tricks or clear-cut ways to organize the discussion, but there are some rules that define what to include. Discuss your results. Relate your results back to the introduction, previous literature, and hypotheses. Explain how your results fit within theory. Interpret your findings. Recommend or suggest applications of your findings. Summarize and state your conclusions with appropriate supporting evidence. There is something that you do not want to do in the discussion section. Specifically, don't go beyond the scope of your data. Don't speculate beyond your results. Don't make statements your data do not support. Don't make grandiose claims. Don't present new data in discussion. It is a good technique to combine results and discussion. It helps to avoid repetition. It is usually best when the results are short. In terms of how to use tables and figures in the results, please read the text page 379. We will not cover those details in the class.